Around 2.93 million foreigners were living in Japan as of the end of 2020. That's a record high, propelled by a surge in technical trainees and overseas students. However, with international travel restrictions due to the pandemic, that streak of 5 years increase could come to an abrupt end. For foreigners who are already in Japan, they are making the necessary adjustment to live and work in a Japanese society still steeped in tradition. Among them are the Vietnamese, the third largest group of foreigners in Japan after China and South Korea. Following COVID-19 preventive measures, I checked in and walked the long and maze-like corridor. There goes Mr. Chan. Now he's the first Vietnamese to work for this inn, Shirakabeso. And so far it seems that he's getting accustomed to the job here. But I must say, he must work harder on his Japanese. 5 other Vietnamese work here. Twin, Nguyen, and Hoa joined last July. Hailing from different parts of Vietnam, the workers came to Japan for different reasons, and they didn't know each other until they met at this inn. The COVID-19 pandemic brought them together. Gan and Van are the newest members of the Vietnamese crew. Yuka Suzuki is the 4th generation Okami or proprietress of Shirakabeso. The 40-year-old succeeded her mother in 2018 as the face of this family-owned inn. The inn, which was founded in 1954, located in the Izu region of Shizuoka Prefecture, a place known for its natural beauty that has inspired generations of Japanese writers. Yasunari Kawabata, the first Japanese writer to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature, completed the Izu Dancer, a short story published in 1925 during his stay in Izu at another inn. Shirakabeso itself had hosted another award-winning writer, Yasushi Inoue. His favorite room remains with his portrait. But this refuge of peace and serenity is not spared from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
旧スタッフがやはり高齢ですとか、コロナウイルスのが怖いということで退職された方も多かったんですね。
Izu is one of the fastest aging cities in Japan, with 40% of the population over the age of 65. It's facing a serious labor shortage. Couldn't find new workers from among the locals. Yuka made a decision that's unheard of in this secluded city. She decided to hire foreigners to fill the vacancies. Residents here are not used to having foreigners among them, including her parents.
スタッフとしてはなかなか言葉の壁だとか文化の壁があるのでとても難しいかなと思いましたけれども。
Through a placement agent, Yuka met Chan from central Vietnam. Chan's bright personality and warmth eventually won over Yuka's parent, and they decided to hire more Vietnamese and train them.
前面に出て仕事をするのはちょっと無理だろうと最初は思ってたわけですね。ただやってもらいましたら非常に熱心で話を1回するだけでも飲み込んですぐできるわけですね。
こんにちは。はい、どうぞお邪魔します。
はい、お帰りください。
Van and Gun are Yuka's latest hires. I was invited to their apartment. Their employer helps pay part of the rent for this place. Van told me about her previous job at another inn. It wasn't a pleasant experience.
前の私の仕事は事務所での仕事ですね。そんな仕事は接客とお客様を探す仕事です。お客様がいないと売り上げがないと給料がありませんですから、そんなことで転職しました。コロナのせいで。
Gan worked at the same inn with Van. After she graduated from a university in Vietnam, she worked for a Japanese company near home. She came to Japan hoping to brush up on her language skills and start a new career. Things didn't turn out as planned.
Actually, last year I did try to get back to Vietnam once, but because the COVID, we don't have any plans to go around, and then I decided to find a job here to keep my life here.
Van and Gan recounted what happened to them with little emotions. But Yuka told me she found out from the work placement agent they were registered with that Van and Gan were mistreated by their previous employers.
朝6時から夜11時までその日光の旅館で、通常業務としたら5人分ぐらい働いてたんですよね。総支給がもうこの実労に見合ってない金額も聞いたんですけども、まあそれは本当にいわゆるブラックで。
Trying to plug a growing labor gap, Japan has stepped up efforts to bring in more foreign workers from Asian countries like Vietnam for low-skilled jobs at its farms and factories. But as the number of foreign workers increases, there are more reports about poorly paid foreign workers being mistreated in Japan.
私どもはもう日本のスタッフと同じように正社員で雇用しております。まあ、待遇などもすべて日本のスタッフと変わらず、受け入れております。
Business at Shirakabe-so has been quiet due to the pandemic. Still, Yuka needs her new employees because she is still hopeful that the Tokyo Olympic Games will go ahead as planned in July. With Izu City selected to host track and mountain bike cycling, inns and hotels nearby are expecting an influx of foreign guests when the games happen.
オリンピックも予定されておりますので、日本の和食を英語でご案内するそんな研修も控えております。また秋に向けたおもてなし研修、おもてなし検定の取得、和食検定の取得。
If one day the Vietnamese decide to leave Shirakabe-so, Yuka hopes the certificate will help them find jobs at prestigious inns and hotels. But her genuine wish is that they stay.
こちらが限界集落になりますものですから、やはり地域のパワーとして若いこのスタッフの力を宿以外にもインパワーできたらいいなと思ってまして、そういう意味でも永住を、してくれるようなサポートを今整えている最中です。
According to the Immigration Office, currently about 420,000 Vietnamese live in Japan. That's an increase of about 25% from the end of 2018. Some of them may want to stay in Japan for a long time or even permanently. If they do, they might want to start a family. And if they do start a family, they'll have to adapt also to the Japanese education system. Now, a district in Mie Prefecture may serve as an example. I'll take you there. Japan introduced a new visa 2 years ago to attract overseas blue-collar workers. It's to address the country's acute labor shortage due to a rapidly aging population and declining birth rate. Such move will see more foreigners living and working among the Japanese who are monocultural. But at least one Japanese city has had a large immigrant population for decades now. Its experience may serve as a model for other local governments who also want more foreigners among them. This apartment complex in Yokkaichi City in Mie Prefecture is unlike any other in Japan. A third of the residents are foreigners. Many work at the factories nearby. Here, signs in Portuguese and Spanish telling residents where not to walk their pets and how to sort their trash are a common feature. Next to the apartment is a street filled with business establishments carrying signs in Portuguese. Mauro Hatano, a Brazilian of Japanese descent, owns this restaurant.
自分で商売もやってました向こうでね。結局向こうがインフレがすごい上がるたりとで、やっぱり車壊れたりとか修理とかめっちゃ高いです。ちょうどチャンスがあった日本に来るようにね。で私と弟手続きをしてでも1ヶ月以内にできた。
He's been here 20 years. His children have grown up and left him. The influx of foreigners, especially Brazilians, began in the 1990s after the relaxation of the immigration law. Today, here in Sasagawa district in Yokkaichi City, 20% of the population are Brazilians or other foreigners. Many of the immigrants here have Japanese ancestry, allowing them to apply for a work permit in Japan. Yokkaichi used to be regarded as a model city for how its local community and large foreign population managed to acclimatize to each other. I met Mr. Hatano on a trip organized by the Foreign Ministry, who was eager to showcase its efforts to help foreigners adapt to life in Japan. More than ever, local governments in Japan want the immigrant communities to thrive. They want to bring in more foreigners to help keep the demographics young and plug a severe labor shortage.
人口の規模っていうのは、町の力の源泉だと思ってますので、ある程度の人口を維持していくことを考えるとですね、やはりこの外国人の方の力を借りていく必要があると思いますし。
Mie Prefecture, a manufacturing hub west of Tokyo, also wants to accommodate more Vietnamese and Nepalese.
製造業だったり、あるいは地域のお祭りのことだったり、そういうのを支えていただく重要な存在なので、うまく文化とか、背景によって風習とかが違うところありますけれども、そういうのをコミュニケーションして乗り越えていって、一緒に暮らしていけるような形にしたいですね。
But in Yokkaichi, officials told me that many first-generation immigrants struggle because they don't speak Japanese and their children are more likely to fall behind in school in Japan. That's why in 2005, local authorities started a project called Children's Class, offering free tuition to South American children of Japanese ancestry who moved to Japan with their parents. I was invited to visit the children there. I was told these students come from Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, and the Philippines. Many are from poor homes and can't afford prep school. Coaching them are mostly retired teachers.
日本の友達はいっぱいできています。私も日本のこと勉強しやすいし、言葉が分かりやすい。子ども教室に来たら算数や国語がもっと分かるようになることです。
A 2019 survey by the Education Ministry showed that close to 20,000 foreign children registered in Japan are not going to school for compulsory education. The ministry also says in 2018, children born to parents of foreign nationals who need Japanese language support rose 5 years in a row to over 50,000. Nearby Nishi-Sasagawa Junior High School is a public school that has been designated by local authorities to accept foreign students and hire teaching staff with foreign language ability to accommodate them. 40% of its students are foreign nationals and many with South American roots.
ポルトガル語しか使った感じかもあるよ。 っていうふうにやりましたね。だからみんなでポルトガル語をしゃべる時間、みんなで英語をしゃべっている時間、みんなで日本語をしゃべっている時間っていうのを作っていて、その言葉を使って逆にどんどんコミュニケーションを取らせるとかっていうふうなことをしていけばいいのかなと。
As of 2020, foreign residents account for 2.3% of Japan's total population, up from just 1.3% a decade ago. According to the Science Council of Japan, half of the foreign residents who are already in Japan are expected to settle in Japan and have children. Back in Amagi district of Izu City in Shizuoka Prefecture, a group of Vietnamese workers look set to make this formerly undisturbed neighborhood their home. They may be the pioneers who will permanently change this place. Local residents are not used to seeing foreign workers in this area, and Shirakabe-so may have changed that mindset with the success of its Vietnamese workers. It seems like some inns and businesses here are starting to think about employing foreign workers. Hiring foreigners has helped Yuka Suzuki see her business in a new light.
日本文化のおもてなし、旅館のおもてなしが必ずしも日本人だけにしかできないということがないということが分かりました。
The hospitality that she and her staff will be ready to demonstrate if the Tokyo Olympic Games are held as planned. Japan is not the only country whose labor market is forced to adapt due to the pandemic. Now, in the US, NGOs are finding new ways to help refugees and asylum seekers find jobs in restaurants after many were shuttered due to the pandemic.
Over the last 10 months, Yusuf Mubaraz has watched his deli lose 75% of its business. Located just off of Times Square in New York City, he relies heavily on tourist foot traffic, which is all but dried up.
We're not a Fortune 500 company, so we make our money on the small local transactions and the juices and the drinks and the sandwiches.
When we last saw Yusuf in May, he'd received government help with a stimulus-backed loan, but it wasn't enough.
The rent has always been very high, but we've been able to make it over the years. But at this point, it's not profitable for us or for the long term either way. We don't know when it's going to get back, so we're making plans to shut it down.
The business his family has owned for 20 years will close in the next few months. And it's a similar story in other parts of Manhattan. His cousin's deli nearby shut down. In Washington, D.C., the organisation Tables Without Borders has had to adapt. Usually they'd find positions in restaurant kitchens for refugees and asylum seekers. But back in April, with restaurants closed, their chefs cooked 10,000 free meals that they bagged up and distributed to vulnerable communities. Now that eateries have partially reopened in the US capital, they've changed their business model again, allowing their intern chefs to return to restaurants.
We provide the pay for the intern, and the restaurant, which is struggling, receives an extra hand for free in the kitchen during the duration of the internship. So it's actually a win-win.
As before, the organisation and its workers are unlikely to be eligible for government stimulus. But Sarah Abdelrahim is hopeful about another policy from the new president, an increase in the number of refugees.
The Biden administration, if they stay true to their word, are looking to bring in 10 times more than what the Trump administration brought in. So when they get to that line item on their to-do list, which I think it's kind of lower on the priority list, we're excited to see individuals from around the world coming and contributing to the U.S.
The small town of Marlow on the outskirts of London is one of the wealthiest places in the UK. On the banks of the Thames, it's a popular tourist destination, and home to dozens of pubs and restaurants. But they're all either closed or offering takeaway only, forced to shut their doors as part of the third national lockdown. Chef Tom Kerridge is one of the most famous faces in the UK food scene. Cookbooks, TV series and Michelin stars, but his restaurants in Marlow are closed. Now he's trying to use his fame and influence to help the industry he loves.
The world cannot exist on Zoom calls alone. It has to be able to grow and develop, and hospitality provides that. So support for the industry is hugely important, because if you support that industry will support the growth of the country, everything coming back, the grassroots, the foundations of every other business is fundamentally deep-rooted into hospitality.
Unable to survive on small grants, many hospitality businesses have been forced to take out loans to cover overheads, but others have decided it's just not worth it. In an industry with tight profit margins, repeated lockdowns, often with little warning, have been too much for many to survive. Closures last year were triple what they were in 2019. Almost 10,000 licensed premises ceased trading, and many fear things will get worse before they get better. A petition calling for a dedicated minister for hospitality was signed by more than 200,000 people. That triggered a debate in Parliament.
We need one voice, a senior voice in government who invests in our industry and invests in meeting our business leaders and meeting everybody, our suppliers, to put our industry in the position within government that it should be. We're the third largest employer in the UK. 1 in 6 jobs that's created in the UK is in hospitality or was in hospitality.
The government has defended the support that's been provided to the industry, but stopped short of promising a dedicated minister. As the lobbying continues, many argue that vaccinations and returning to some sort of normality is the only long-term solution.
It will come back. Those places will operate again, because as human beings we will want to socially interact when it's safe and it's right and you can. The only issue will be that the people that are in the position of owning those businesses right now will probably not be the people that reopen them.
Recent scientific advice warned against reopening pubs until May. The fear is that many businesses simply won't be able to survive that long.